Hi everybody, this is your narrator Ollie, and I hope you are ready to relax to our story today. Tonight, we sit beside Prophet Daniel, peace be upon him, thrown into a pit with lions, remembered by his Lord in the depths, and discovered centuries later as a sign for a new generation. We will listen to the quiet courage of a man who trusted when there was no earthly way out, and we will follow the trail of his ring and his book long after his soul had returned to its maker. Chapter 1. A child marked by a dream. Long before Daniel stood before lions, his story began as a whispered fear in a king's chamber. Astrologers and soothsayers, reading their stars and signs, warned the ruler of their time that a boy would be born who would one day topple his throne and break his power. The king's heart clenched around his crown. He did what fearful tyrants have often done. He vowed to kill every newborn boy whose birth might match the prophecy. Mothers hid their babies, fathers trembled, and cries filled the night. Among the tiny lives threatened by this decree was Daniel. Some narrations say he was taken and cast into a den where a lion and lioness dwelt, left there as helpless as a lamb. But instead of tearing him, the beasts came close, sniffed, and began to lick him as a mother licks her cub. They lay beside him like guards, their warm flanks sheltering him from the cold. His mother, searching and weeping, eventually found him alive between those great heads, and by Allah's mercy she carried him away. From that day onward, the image of two lions and a small figure between them was engraved not only in Daniel's memory, but later in the stone of a ring he would wear, a reminder on his own hand of the night when power and tooth and claw bowed to the command of his Lord. Chapter 2. A prophet in a foreign court years past. The boy grew into a man of clear mind and upright heart, part of the children of Israel taken captive to distant lands when their own city fell. In the palaces of Babylon, Daniel's wisdom and purity became known. He interpreted dreams when the scholars of the court failed. He advised kings in ways that saved lives and brought justice. And he never bent his worship to anyone but Allah. Such men are respected, but they are also envied. Some courtiers watched Daniel with narrow eyes. They saw how rulers listened to him and how his counsel carried weight. Jealousy whispered in their hearts. They conspired to bring about his downfall, stirring fears in the king, twisting laws and decrees until the path was laid that would lead Daniel to a pit of lions once again, not as a threatened infant this time, but as a prophet whose loyalty to God was stronger than loyalty to any earthly throne. Chapter 3. The Night of the Lions. There came a day when Daniel stood accused of disobedience to the king's command. The details differed among the storytellers, but the sentence was clear. He was to be thrown into a den where hungry lions prowled, their roars echoing against stone. By the king's order, perhaps reluctant, perhaps hardened, 2 fierce lions were captured and starved. A pit was prepared. From above, one could hear the rumbling growls rising from its depth. Daniel was brought to the brink. Chains were loosened. He looked down into the darkness and smelled the rank breath of the beasts. But his heart, long trained in trust, did not waver. He knew that every creature moved only by Allah's leave. If his time had come, no cave nor palace could keep him. If his time had not come, no claw nor tooth could hasten it by a single heartbeat. The order was given. He was cast into the pit. The lions approached, muscles coiled, eyes bright. Those watching from above might have turned away, expecting the end, yet no roar of attack came. The lions did not pounce. They padded around him, their threat stilled by an unseen command. They lay down, and Daniel remained, as Allah willed, safe among them, alone with his thoughts, surrounded by symbols of fear that had been turned into signs of protection. Night settled. Stone held its chill. The lions slept and woke and slept again. At last, after that moment of earthly drama had passed, a simpler need rose in Daniel's body, hunger and thirst. Far away in the lands of Sham, Prophet Jeremiah was living among his own trials, mourning for the ruins and rebuilding of Jerusalem. To him came a revelation: prepare food and drink for Daniel. He answered with practical confusion, "My Lord, I am in Jerusalem, and Daniel is in Babylon." The reply was gentle and firm. "Do as you are commanded. I will send one who will carry you and what you have prepared." Jeremiah obeyed. He cooked, he poured water, he packed provisions, perhaps still wondering how bread baked in Palestine would reach a man in an Iraqi pit. Then Allah sent a means of transport that carried Jeremiah and his bundle across distance until he reached the edge of Daniel's prison. Daniel, hearing movement above, looked up. "Who is there?" he called. "I am Jeremiah," came the answer, echoing down the walls. "What brings you?" Daniel asked. "Your Lord has sent me to you," Jeremiah said simply. Daniel's heart overflowed. "So my Lord has remembered me," he said, and in that moment every cold hour, every doubt cast by enemies, every ache of the body melted into certainty. He praised Allah, the one who never neglects those who call upon him, who answers patience with safety, who lifts harm after distress, who steadies hearts when their own skills and powers fall away. In the den between lions and stone, two prophets shared food and words. Heaven had joined their stories so that each might be a comfort to the other. Chapter 4. Echoes after a long silence. Time, which had once moved slowly in prison pits and long nights, eventually swept Daniel and his generation away. His soul returned to the mercy of its Lord. Empires shifted again. New languages rose along old riverbanks. Centuries later, Muslim armies reached far lands in the course of just rule and defense. In the city of Tastar, they entered the treasury of a fallen governor named Al-Harmazan and found among the gold and objects of power a curious sight. On a bed lay the preserved body of a man, as if asleep. Beside him rested a scroll filled with writing no one present could read. They brought both body and scripture to Medina, to the Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab. May Allah be pleased with him. Umar, who feared arrogance even in victory, looked down at the unknown man with the respect due to any servant of God. He summoned Kab al-Ahbar, a scholar well versed in the ancient scriptures. Kab read the text, translating it into Arabic. One of the listeners, Abu Khalid ibn Dinar, later said, "I read it as I read the Quran," meaning that the flow and wisdom of it were clear and dignified. The scroll contained stories and history, songs and speeches, and glimpses of what was yet to come. It was a tapestry of a life that seemed to match the tales of Daniel. "Who do you think this man is?" Abu Khalid asked the learned Abu Aliya. "A man called Daniel," came the answer. "How long has he been dead?" he asked. 300 years was the estimation, yet his body was unchanged, save for the hair of his face. The skin of prophets, it is said, is not consumed by the earth, nor torn apart by beasts. The people of that town had once treated this preserved body as a kind of relic. When drought left their skies empty of clouds, they would bring out the bed on which he lay and ask for rain. And rain would come. To protect the man from being turned into an object of superstition, the Muslims decided to honor him by burying him secretly. Chapter 5. A Hidden Grave and a Secret, known to 4 Caliphs. Umar ordered that the body be buried in such a way that no one willing to misuse it could find it again. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, one of the commanders, took charge. He dug 13 graves along a riverbank, indistinguishable from one another. When night fell, they placed Daniel's body in one of them and covered it. Then they leveled the ground over all the graves so that no eye could tell which held the prophet. In some narrations, 4 prisoners were ordered to dig the grave in the middle of the dry riverbed. After Daniel was buried, Abu Musa executed those 4, not out of cruelty, but to seal the secret so that no one could later point and say, "Here lies the one whose presence brings rain." It is a hard image for modern ears, yet it reflects the early Muslims' fierce determination to protect pure monotheism from turning any human, even a prophet, into an object of worship or bargaining with heaven. Umar instructed them to divide any coins found with the body among the soldiers, to send a portion of ointment to him, and to keep the ring as a gift for Abu Musa. And slowly, over the years, the exact spot where Daniel lay returned to the knowledge of Allah alone. Chapter 6. The Ring with the 2 Lions. One detail of Daniel's legacy remained visible in later times: a ring. People saw it on the hand of Abu Burda, the son of Abu Musa. In its stone were carved 2 lions facing each other, and between them a small human figure whom they were licking with their tongues. When people asked about the design, Abu Burda would tell the story he had inherited. This, he said, was the ring of the man the townsfolk had called Daniel. The scholars of that city had told Abu Musa the story of Daniel's childhood and of the den of lions. They said that after Allah saved him in that miraculous way, Daniel had the scene engraved on his ring so that each time he looked at his hand, he would remember the favor poured upon him. The ring was not a charm in itself. It was a reminder, a quiet, daily way of saying, "Once I was as helpless as that figure between the lions, and still Allah's protection surrounded me. Let me never forget." Stories also circulated about the length of Daniel's nose. Some said as long as a span, others even longer, marking him as one of the ancient prophets, whose features and times belonged to an earlier age. Such details fascinated the storytellers, but the heart of his story lay not in measurements of bone, but in the measure of his trust. Chapter 7. Echoes of a Prophet's Book. The scroll found at Daniel's side continued to intrigue scholars. Some reported that it contained his life story and annals, what he had seen among kings and captives, what visions he had interpreted, what songs he had sung in praise of his Lord, and what warnings he had delivered about the futures of nations. Within it were descriptions of things that had already come to pass, and others that had yet to be fulfilled, some of which the early Muslims watched unfold with sober reflection. To Umar and his companions, the discovery of such a text was not an invitation to build new rituals, but a confirmation of a pattern they already knew, that Allah had sent messengers and righteous ones to many peoples, that some were believed and some denied, that often it was long after their passing that the true weight of their words was recognized. They treated the scroll with respect, but they did not confuse it with their own final revelation. For them, Daniel was a brother in prophethood, his story a mirror reminding them of the constancy of God and the fickleness of human power. Chapter 8. Daniel's Praise in the Pit. Returning to the night of the lions, there is a small scene that deserves to be held close. Imagine Daniel in the darkness, hearing the sound of feet above. He has already seen death held at bay once. He has spent hours alone with the knowledge that only Allah knows how this will end. Then a beloved voice calls down, Jeremiah. Not only has his Lord preserved him, but he has sent another prophet across hundreds of miles with food and drink. It is not a dramatic rescue in front of a cheering crowd. It is a quiet kindness, almost secret. Daniel's response is not a rush to eat. It is words of praise. He magnifies the one who never forgets those who turn to him. He acknowledges that for every act of goodness, Allah responds with better. That patience, when it seems to lead into deeper danger, is in fact a bridge towards safety. That after distress, harm is lifted like a heavy cloak. That when all our usual skills fail us, hope in Allah remains. These praises, born in the heart of the pit, are perhaps the true center of Daniel's story. Closing reflection. Trust, written between lions. The life of Daniel, as it comes down to us through these narrations, is scattered like pieces of a mosaic. A child between lions, a prophet in a foreign court, a man in a pit, receiving food from a distant friend, a preserved body discovered by a new nation, a ring engraved with remembered mercy. Taken together, they form an image of trust. Tyrants feared dreams about him before he was even born. Friends and enemies tried to measure his significance by the number of kings he advised or outlived. But to Daniel himself, the decisive moments were likely much simpler. A night when beasts did not harm him, a moment of hunger when unexpected provision arrived, the quiet carving of a memory into stone so that gratitude would not fade with time. There is also a lesson in the way later believers handled his legacy. They honored his body by burying it, not displaying it. They respected his book, but did not build their religion upon it. They cherished his ring not as a talisman, but as a story in miniature. Perhaps, as you let your mind ease toward rest, you can imagine your own ring, not of gold and gems, but of memories engraved on the heart. Times you were saved when things should have gone differently. Moments when help arrived from a place you could not have planned. Nights when fear did not have the last word. Daniel's story whispers that being thrown among lions, literal or figurative, is not the end if one above those lions remembers you. And it suggests that remembrance goes both ways. We ask not to be forgotten, and we strive not to forget. This is your narrator, Ali, thanking you for listening to the story of Prophet Daniel tonight, and wishing you a peaceful heart, steady trust, and the comfort of knowing that in every dark den there is an ear listening for your call. For more stories that can help you relax, don't forget to like and subscribe.